there's still like we're still not finished, right? We're still not finished with what Ethereum sets out to do, and there's a lot more work to be done. And I I'm now after I had some time to think, I'm very excited that I can still contribute to that mission.
Yeah.
But I also feel like a few people kind of felt that like now that the merge was done, the work was done, and I'm very glad that I for myself, and I think many people for themselves, have decided that there is a big point of Ethereum and to Ethereum and to working on Ethereum and to moving this idea forward. So yeah. My name is Marius van der Wijden. I'm a developer at the Ethereum Foundation. I work in the Geth team, and I recently started also working as a track lead together with Tim and Ansgar for the Scale DL1 track within the Ethereum Foundation.
What would you say has been your biggest contribution to Ethereum so far in your career, Marius?
That's that's a big question. Um, I have one small thing. I think I'm the one who came up with the abbreviation EL and CL. Yes. Like it used to be only like written out, and I think I wrote the first I abbreviated for it for the first time. So I'm quite proud of that. But yeah, no, I think my biggest achievement is I think it's probably my biggest achievement in life so far, in like my professional life, is working on the merch. I think that was just that was such an intense time, and yeah, I did a bunch of work there on our implementation in within Geth, but I also did a lot of work on the testing side, trying to coordinate the different client teams and doing a lot of work there. So I think probably like all my work around the merge is probably my biggest contribution. But otherwise, there aren't that many like single things where I could point to and say like this is what I've done.
Yeah. It's cool because that's very much in line with the previous Meet the Devs interviews that I've done. I feel like many of the developers that I've asked this question to, the merge is such a pivotal upgrade that they contributed to and feel like has been one of their biggest contributions.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was just the most amazing time. It was like okay, that's like it was a time where everyone was really aligned what the next step actually is, and so everyone like it felt like like everyone is contributing as much as they can, and we really wanted to ship this, and we shipped it, and yeah, I think that was an amazing time. And afterwards, to be honest, like afterwards, you kind of fell into a bit of a hole. It was like, okay, the price didn't move. Um, the public wasn't super excited about it. There was very few recognition of all of the hard work that we've done, except like within the Ethereum community, and so I think a bunch of people were like, okay, like now that we've done this, what's next? And I think it took some time for us, also for myself, to kind of like ground myself again and see like, okay, even though we shipped this, which is I think one of the most important things that we've done in the last years. Um, there's still like we're still not finished, right? We're still not finished with what Ethereum sets out to do, and there's a lot more work to be done. And I I'm now after I had some time to think, I'm very excited that I can still contribute to that mission. But I also feel like a few people kind of felt that like now that the merge was done, the work was done, and I think that also contributed a bit um, to this feeling that we had over the last like 1.5, 2 years, where it was like, okay, Now that the merge is done, now that we've shipped withdrawals, we shipped like basically everything that didn't fit into the merge that came after. Now that all of this is done, what's the point on working on Ethereum anymore? And I'm very glad that I, for myself, and I think many people for themselves, have decided that there is a big point of Ethereum and to Ethereum and to working on Ethereum and to moving this idea forward. So yeah.
Well, so what are you working towards now? I mean, if the merge was seen as this kind of finale for some, and for you, obviously, Marius, you are going to continue to contribute. Are you envisioning working towards like another merge like upgrade? Is that your kind of end goal for Ethereum's next steps?
No, I don't think there will be another merge like upgrade. I don't think there will be a single upgrade that you can point to and say like this totally changes everything. I think what needs to be done and what we're working on is trying to, now that we have a system that kind of works, right? Like Ethereum has a market cap of like 400 billion in at this point, and so it's like, and people are transacting day in day out. They are transacting on L1, they are transacting on L2s. This whole L2 roadmap kind of plays out and the way we envisioned it, like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I think there will never be this clear point where we're changing something and Ethereum will be 100 times better or 1,000 times better. And that is kind of what we did with the merge, right? Like maybe not for the benefit for the user was minuscule, but oh well, not really minuscule. There were also a lot of benefits for users that kind of got overlooked, like like deterministic 12-second blocks and so on. Lower issuance, all of these things. But I think the big like 1,000x improvement was in the energy consumption of Ethereum,
Mhm.
and I think the future for Ethereum will hold more gradual improvements than that. But that doesn't mean that these will not be very beneficial to the users, and I think. Yeah, it's maybe it's less exciting, like not working on this like massive thing that will change everything. But I think it is actually more important for the users to have these gradual improvements. And we are seeing people in developing countries using crypto and Ethereum uh, to save, to transact. And I think these are the use cases that I'm like most excited about. And now that we are scaling, we have finally found a way of of uh, like enabling these use cases for the average user. And it's
Yeah.
not, yeah, and it's not that like people like need 10 need to pay 10 euros in transaction fees anymore. But the transaction fees are consistently lower than $1 on mainnet, and in lower than cents on L2s. And I think that's this, like we are unlocking a lot of use cases that can be built upon Ethereum with this. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in the sense that I too think that because Ethereum is a technology, it always has to keep evolving. Like the only thing I think with Ethereum and the L2 vision that I worry about a little bit is I feel like Ethereum's original vision was this idea of unstoppable code that anyone in the world could create a program like a Uniswap contract, or they can implement like a new lending protocol, and that code, because it's run on this world computer, will always, like, no one can take it down. I feel like with the state of the L2 ecosystem right now, most of the L2s, if not all of them, are centralized, and that kind of guarantee doesn't actually transfer over, even though I know that this is something that people are working towards.
Mm.
Um, and I think that the value accrual also from L2s to the L1, like there's just so much disagreement still about where that, how that works out, I guess, in the long term. Um, so I feel like in comparison to Bitcoin, there's just still a lot like unknown, I guess, with like how Ethereum's vision plays out. I'm still not sure, I guess, if like that original vision is still the vision of Ethereum today.
Um, yeah, I'd like to interject a bit into this, like, having a centralized L2 doesn't mean that the L2 is or like the code isn't unstoppable anymore, right? Because right now, the most L2s, as far as I understand, they have a lot of training wheels. But once they remove the training wheels, um, these, like, you can still deploy unstoppable code on an L2, and the only thing that the L2 sequencer, the centralized sequencer, can really do is go offline, like, or they can provide like bad proofs to the chain, but the chain will not accept bad proofs. Or in an optimistic case, the chain will accept bad proofs, but then you can prove that the proof was bad. But in any way, the outcome is the same. The L2 sequencer, even though it's centralized, it can never cheat you. The only thing it can do is it can censor you. And if the L2 sequencer starts censoring you, then you can always go to mainnet and get your money back, and or like continue your application on mainnet, or continue your application on a different L2 and move the state over. And these things are not there yet, as far as I understand, but they will be there in the future. And there's a lot of people working on exactly this. And I personally think that L2 teams are spending too much time on decentralizing the sequencer. I think decentralizing the sequencer is not important. The more important thing is to get this forced exit, forced inclusion mechanism working, and to get mass exits and mass mass exit events working on mainnet. And I think those are, or like or how to, like, getting ways of migrating part of one L2 to another L2. These are the things that I see much more important than decentralizing something that only can only like censor you for a certain period of time until you yourself like take some action to go to mainnet. Yeah, so I know that, like, especially in the Bitcoin community, this is this is held as like the weak point of the L2 roadmap is decentralized sequences. But as long as you have the cryptographic proof, these sequences cannot take your money. And I think that is something that the that I hope for, is that L2s are really building out this infrastructure.
Yeah, I think those two things definitely go hand in hand. Um, Being able to actually get like mass withdrawals and have people be able to exit back to the mainnet. Let's put a pin in this conversation on the L2s, because I do want to talk to you a little bit more about how you see, I guess, like the vision for Ethereum playing out. Um, but in the spirit of these style of interviews, I also want to ask you, Marius, about your life before Ethereum and how you came to become such like a believer in the Ethereum ecosystem and work full time in Ethereum as a client developer and now as this like team lead, sort of like strategic vision lead for the foundation. So tell me first, what were you doing before you got into Ethereum?
Yeah, there's not much life before Ethereum, to be honest. So I started studying at TU Darmstadt, doing a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. And during my studies, I had a course on programming massively parallel processors, so CUDA programming for GPUs, and that's kind of how I got into the whole crypto ecosystem. I was like, okay, like this is a new programming language. I'm really interested in like actual programs written in this new language. So I went straight to GitHub and looked at projects that use this language. And
The
the
CUDA
first,
language?
yeah, the CUDA, and the first one that I found was ETH which was the open source mining software. And I started contributing and quickly became part of like the team. Back then we would like talk on Gitter. I don't know if you remember Gitter, but in the early days, a lot of the conversations around Ethereum would happen on Gitter, which is like this instant messaging service that no one uses anymore. But yeah, a lot of like cool discussions happened there, and and then I started like prioritizing crypto in also my normal studies. Um, and then I joined a professor of mine who wanted to create a startup around payment and state channels. So also like L2s, basically L2 scalability technology for Ethereum, but also for like other blockchains. And
Well,
we
he was really early, your professor.
yeah, he basically had a chair mostly focused on blockchain and cryptography and cryptocurrencies. And yeah, he gave a lecture on cryptocurrencies in 2017, I think. That was like early 2017, before like the big hype. And I also joined like in ETH miner in 2017, and then in 2018 I joined this professor, and worked there as a working student next to my studies. And yeah, after 2 years, um, I decided that like I I decided that I spent just way too much time working in the startup and way too little time working on my actual studies. In the meantime, I got my bachelor thesis. I wrote my bachelor thesis on also on payment and state channels, and like benchmarking the gas costs of different channel networks, and like channel constructions,
Cool.
which was it was really interesting. It was yeah, it was right before like this move to rollups happened, um, and um, and I still think that payment channels at least um, have are something that I think is a really cool thing, and I'm sad that it's like underinvested in and underappreciated. Um, so basically, what we were trying to do in the startup, and what the Lightning Network is doing, and what what all of these other like payment channel networks were doing was to create these like really big networks. You have like hundreds of participants, and you have to find routes through the network between the participants. You have to have like a very complex decentralized networking component. You have to find have these like very advanced route finding algorithms. You have to have enough liquidity on all of the routes to send money from like one point to the other. The intermediaries in these routes have to be online. So a lot of like problems. And what I figured out at some point was if you only do it between two people, it's not as exciting. It's not as cool as having like these channel networks. But if you only have, if you and I don't know, we every Sunday we go out and have a drink, and sometimes I pay, sometimes you pay. So what we can do is like we open a channel between each other, and sometimes I update the balance, sometimes you update the balance, and this has a bunch of it simplifies these projects a whole lot. And as long as you can like open and close these channels very cheaply, which you cannot, for example, that is why Bitcoin would never move to this, because you cannot open the channels easily and cheaply on Bitcoin. But if you have like opening and closing on an L2, and the opening and closing is like less than a cent, then you can have like massive loads of transactions that are happening only between the two people that are actually part of the transaction, and no one else in the network needs to know about all of the like the money that we are sending around, as long as we don't like destroy or create money. And so yeah, I think like all of these like debit card use cases, like where you load up a card and then you pay with a card, all of this can be done with payment channels so easily. And so at some point, I actually started building some projects again around this idea of like very simple, very easy to use, easy to integrate payment channels for like some hackathons. But yeah, so where were we? I put in my I had 1 month of notice in the startup, and we were internally using Geth as a library to build like the Ethereum part for this project. And so yeah, I put in my 1 month of notice, and during this 1 month I had a few things that I wanted to change in Go Ethereum, because I was like, okay, like using it this way doesn't really feel nice, so I want to use it a different way. And I sent them upstream, and then I, after like 2 or 3 weeks, I found an email in my spam folder from Felix asking me whether I want to join, and I was like, okay, like there's no way this is true, like this is no way this is correct, but it was. And so because I just quit my job, I wanted to focus on studying. I wanted to finish my master's, but this was just such a great opportunity that I couldn't really pass it up. And so I worked for a year. I worked 75%, or I had a 75% contract with Ethereum, or with the Ethereum Foundation,
What
and I
year was
finished my
this?
master's. 2020,
Gotcha.
right? Also, right when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So during this time, it was very interesting time. I moved back to my parents' place, and just stayed here. And I worked like, I was only paid for 75% of my time, but I worked like 100% of the time, or like 40 hours, 45 hours on Ethereum. And then on the weekends and during the nights, I would finish my studies. And yeah, and then I wrote my master thesis on EVM fuzzing. So at that point, I could like kind of combine them to these two ideas. I went to a professor and was like, okay, like here's the idea that I have that I want to do for my masters. Can I do it with you? And yeah, he accepted. So yeah, and that's how I then joined the Ethereum Foundation. And yeah, my master's, actually, I found 3 consensus issues in my master's in between Nethermind and Bisu and like the rest. And it was actually like it also contained like a class of issues. And what's really funny is one of the issues that I found was later on also reported in Reth, because there was like basically everyone made the same mistake when they first implemented this one function. And yeah, I stumbled upon it in I think in Nethermind, but later it was also found in Reth. And I don't know, everyone has to make the same mistake. It was also in Geth, but that was fixed also before my time. But yeah,
What
Martin
was the
told me about it.
what was the function?
Um, so in ModX, we have this ModX precompile, right? And this ModX precompile has 3 parameters. Oh, actually, it has 6 parameters: the size of the modulo, the size of the exponent, the size of the base, and then the modulo, the exponent, and the base. What you could do is, if you set the modulo and the exponent, no, if you set the modulo and the base to 0, or just the modulo to 0, and the exponent to something really, really large, the computation would use a lot of time, and the answer would always be 1. And so yeah, this was basically a DOS in basically all of the clients. And the fix for it is just to check if any of these parameters is 0, then you don't do the computation, you just return the result.
So you found these consensus issues and talked about them in your master's paper. When did you graduate? And after that graduation, was it just full-time Ethereum Foundation working on the Geth team?
Yes, yes. I graduated in 21, and I just full time ever since. Yeah.
Okay. And how would you say like your role in terms of your day-to-day has changed since 2021? I mean, is it still, I mean, when you first joined, was it working on the Geth implementation, finding these bugs, implementing upgrades? And over the course of time, did you start to like step away more from Geth work? Or tell me a little bit about how your role as a Geth developer has changed since 2021, since you first joined.
Yeah, so it hasn't changed that much.
Okay.
But like what we notice is that it takes people like 6 months to a year to like really meaningfully contribute, and to the Geth code base. At least it took me that much time. Like we have some new people who are much faster than this, but it was it took like significant time of reading through the code, making like small changes, um, to get comfortable with the code base, to get comfortable with the style. And so I think after like almost a year, I felt like, okay, I'm now comfortable with the
Mm.
code base. I can start tackling bigger features. Can start implementing like bigger things, fixing. I was always like fixing bugs, but I wasn't really like architecting something new. And so that took like a year or two until I like uh, got proficient in that. And then ever since the masters, basically, I was interested in like the security aspect of it with the fuzzing and other testing that we were doing. And so I was always kind of involved in all of these like security issues, initiatives. We started the EF testing team. We started the EF security team, and there was also yeah, sometimes just most of the time it was just like me lending my experience to other people so that like they can just ask questions if they want to know about something. And yeah.
I'm
And
guessing before you guys started the Ethereum security testing team, it was just one person, wasn't it? Was it just
yes.
Martin?
Yes. It was no, actually it was two people. It was Martin and Dimitri. But Dimitri uh, was working, I think, less than half time, half yeah. So it was basically Martin who was doing the security work, and so I started helping him, and I learned so much from him. He's such an incredible like inspiration and mentor for me. Um, and yeah, and then we we yeah, and then Mario joined, who's now leading the EF testing team, and he was a great hire. It was crazy how like testing developed over the last couple of years. When we started, there was this really weird testing framework. It didn't really work, and it I remember there was one fork where we had to delay the fork because the testing wasn't done. And at that point, we were like, okay, like something has to change. Um, and with Mario joining, we also started this East uh, project, the executable execution spec tests, which is basically tests written in Python. Because the problem that we had like meta programming of like the actual tests, and a lot of like what like sometimes people have an idea of what they want to test, but they don't, and then they create a program that creates the test for them. But what we ended up with is like people created programs that created programs that created the tests. And these original programs that actually created the programs, they got lost in time. And so it was really, really hard to like update these tests because we didn't know what the program was trying to do, what the person intended to do with the test. It was just a, a bunch of bytecode. And yeah, the solution that we came up with, or that Matt Light Client um, came up with, was basically to write everything in Python, and that is how the idea of executable execution spec tests came to be. And this is it's amazing how like when we started this, basically for every feature we would write like 5 to 10 tests, and
Yeah.
now they write like 500 tests. They write like all of these different combinations, and Python does it for you. And like you just say, okay, like we have these 5 different combinations, and these 5 different combinations now like create like the 25 resulting matrix, and test everything. And so that is it was a great unlock.
Yeah.
And something similar with the security team was the security team. It was basically Martin and I who were like looking for these, trying to figure out whenever a bug came through the security, the bug bounty list, we would try to figure it out as quickly as we can. And now we have Frederick, who's doing a great job at leading the EF security team, and they are not only very like they're not only like defensively um, trying to figure out the bug reports that are coming in, but they are also trying very like offensively of I don't know if offensively is the right word, but like they are trying to actually break the software. They are trying to find the bugs. They are trying to do something weird with the software. They're building all of these tools to try to break the software. And this increase in capability is something that Martin and I set up, and I think that is one of the big legacies that Martin leaves, is like these teams that are now working under the umbrella of the Ethereum Foundation to make sure that Ethereum is the most secure network out there.
I think it goes to say also that these contributions from like very early contributors like Martin Holzwende, they leave behind like these structures that make Ethereum secure. But newer contributors like Mario Vega, he also has helped implement things like East that has now become the norm to help make Ethereum more secure. And that these contributions from newer contributors, it like progresses Ethereum forward. That without the scaling of these teams, like the testing team and the security team, then like Ethereum probably couldn't do as many upgrades that it does, or even like address some of like the more ambitious upgrades that does require 500 tests, not like a couple of tests.
Definitely.
So it's cool to hear about how your guys' capabilities as a developer community has really grown over the years.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is that is really nice. It's like and we deliberately spend a lot of time in setting up these structures to make sure that like when we're writing a test, like previously we would just write a test in Geth because there wasn't that many other implementations. Nethermind was on the come up, but they were like 5% of the network, or maybe 10% of the network, and like 90% of the network was Geth. And there was also Open Ethereum, but they were already on the way out. But we like deliberately made sure to always write tests in a way so that everyone can consume them, and that because Geth being part of the Ethereum Foundation, we were much better funded than a lot of these other client teams in the past. It kind of changed. Like Nethermind has done a great job at building like a company around the Nethermind client. Paradigm Breath is doing a great job, or I think they're called Ithaca now, doing a great job of building like a company around the Reth client, and so they have much more firepower, which is great. But that wasn't the case in the early days, and so we kind of deliberately said, okay, like whenever we write something, whenever we write tests, we want to write them in a way that all of the client teams can benefit from this. And yeah, I think that was also a lot of like Martin's philosophy around this.
Question about funding for Geth, because that is a very timely topic, I feel like right now, especially as Ethereum Foundation has gone through this transition, and there's been quite a bit of concern in the community about where Geth's long-term funding is going to come from, whether it will stay in the organization or not. It's been a hot topic. Do you have views on the long-term funding for the Geth client, or like no opinions about that?
I do have views. I think right now there's not a question about funding of the Geth team within the Ethereum Foundation. I think I myself would say we are doing a pretty good job with Geth. But I also see that maybe the Geth client needs to evolve. All of the clients are evolving all the time. And as Ethereum is evolving, what we are seeing is a bit of more of a distinction between node types. We will have most likely we will have like light clients, We will have full nodes. We will have archive nodes, but we will also have like nodes that are very focused on RPC, nodes that are very focused on execution. These larger kind of node setups, and I think that is these are challenges that the Geth team is also like uniquely in a position to answer some of these questions that we have around how will the average node look like in 5 years? How will the average like RPC node look like in 5 years? And all of these things. So yeah, there's
I
still a
wanted
lot
to,
of work to be done.
oh, I'm sure. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on Ethereum, period. I want to dive a little bit, spend a little bit more time on this topic of the Geth client. Do you think that the role of Geth in the Ethereum ecosystem is going to become a lot more opinionated? So the Ethereum Foundation has definitely pivoted from its role of subtraction mentality. It's now very open, vocal about what the Ethereum ecosystem should be focusing on. How do you see Geth's role as a client kind of changing in this new future? And historically, the Geth team has been very, I think, more individualistic about the opinions that you guys have. Can you talk more about the role of the Geth client in Ethereum?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that is something that we also want to preserve is the individual voices within the guest team. We, as you have commented on multiple times, is we have had these very public discussions between members of the guest team on all core devs and publicly. And we are trying to like have some of these discussions a bit earlier so that we kind of know what our shared viewpoint is before we go into these calls. But that also doesn't mean that we want to suppress individual contributor opinions on these calls and in general in public. I think it is very important for us that we still have like these that we can still like share our individual opinions. And I think that is also very important with regards to the EF, that it's clear that we are and we always will be expressing our own opinion, which might or might not be the opinion of the Ethereum Foundation or the leadership of the Ethereum Foundation or whomever. I think that is one thing that I when I joined Ethereum as a co-developer and became like more vocal in these calls. I think that was one of the things that I thought about all of this is like it's very important for the people to also rely on me because not everyone can read the code. And if I feel like there's something going wrong with Ethereum, if I feel like there's an upgrade that is proposed that doesn't make sense, or there's something that will like hurt decentralization or privacy or de-anonymize users, then it's my duty to speak up, even if that means not having a job anymore. And I think a lot of people in the Geth team feel the same way. For us, Ethereum is much more important. Ethereum and like the users of Ethereum much more important than the Ethereum Foundation itself. And I think there's a shared understanding with the Ethereum Foundation that we are as independent as possible, and that we want to do what's right for Ethereum.
Can you talk a little bit about yeah, what it takes to be a contributor to specifically the Geth team? Like, do you think that that has changed over the years? Is it somehow less or less easier or more easier to be a Geth client developer today than it was when you first joined?
I don't think so. I think it was probably easier to join when I joined. I didn't have much formal qualifications when I joined, right? I was still within, I had a bachelor's degree, but I was still in university. I was still finishing up my master's. Gary also joined when he was in university. Um, it was, I think it was a bit easier to join back then. Now we are, especially with like the recent our recent two new hires, we are much more selective of who we hire. But there's also, maybe because the talent pool that we can tap into now is very different from what it was 5 years ago. And there's a lot of people, especially like a lot of like L2 developers, a lot of forks of Ethereum, of Geth. So there's a lot of people with like very intimate Geth knowledge out there, and so we don't need to go to universities and start learning on like new people, but we can tap into this existing knowledge pool. On your other question, um, whether it's much different to be part of the Geth team than it is being part of another client. Um, I would say not anymore. Um, I think until a few years ago, maybe like a year and a half ago or something, maybe 2 years ago, it was very different. Because we were doing so much more of this like commons work, I would say, like trying to build this stuff for all of the other client teams. And with Peter departing and Martin departing, um, we don't necessarily have, oh, we don't have many of these people that are there from the very early beginning anymore in the Geth team, and that also means we lose some of this very deep knowledge, this very like institutional knowledge that we had in the Geth team. On the other hand, all of these other client teams have been building up this knowledge, and so I think the Nethermind team is like 20, 25 people or something. All of them specialize in something within Ethereum, within the client. So it's a delight to work with them because there are people who have like who like build up this very deep, intricate knowledge that you can tap into, and I'm very excited about these other client teams, and these people on these other client teams to come in a position where it feels like they have this a similar amount of knowledge than as people in the Geth team, and I think that is really 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 good. So I think the amount of knowledge of core developers has increased drastically um, over the last couple of years, um, and so the difference is that the share of all of the knowledge that Geth developers possess has decreased, and I think that is actually, it's not a bad thing. That is actually a good thing for Ethereum. Is we have so many very smart, very bright people who have had like 2, 3, 4, 5 years of knowledge built up, and who can really start stepping up into these roles, proposing more upgrades, more EIPs, and yeah, driving the ecosystem forward.
How big is the Geth team right now?
We are 10 people.
And if somebody wanted to start contributing to the Geth project, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just just do as I did. Get involved on the GitHub. We have we sometimes have a few like issues that are like good first tag as good first issues or as like open to work or whatever the tag is. And then people start asking whether they can work on these issues. And I mean, like, just do it. Just send the PR. If we decide it's a good PR, we'll go in. If not, it's a good learning experience. And yeah, I think yeah, we are 10 people right now in the Geth team, but I'm only 50% on Geth at this point because I'm doing this other track work. And Guillaume is also focusing a lot on Verkle and other stateless topics. We have we have a bunch of people who are also interested in other things. So not all of these 10 people are focused on building the client right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other advice you'd give to somebody who wants to be a Geth developer based on the time that you were a full-time Geth developer?
Um, it's not easy, and sometimes like our biggest problem that I see in the Geth team is that we have too few people doing code reviews. We get a lot of outside contributions. We get a lot of contributions from within the Geth team, but too few people actually look at other people's contributions and determine if they are correct or if they are incorrect. And so our review process is very slow. And if you want to contribute to Go Ethereum, then you need to be aware of that. It will probably take a week for the first person to actually look at your change. And then it will take like 2 or 3 weeks if we deem that your change is important and should go in. It usually takes like 2 or 3 weeks for this whole review cycle. But and that is, I think that is frustrating to some of the contributors, which I understand. But on the other hand, we also don't want to like willy-nilly merge stuff that can like negatively affect Ethereum or the Geth users. So we need to make sure that every PR is correct, every change is correct, no change contains any like security issues and stuff. So yeah, our process is kind of slow, but it's also a bit like it's slow for a reason. But yeah, if you need something to contribute to Geth, it's definitely patience.
That's actually a very good piece of advice, and it's one of the leads into kind of the final section of this interview, which I want to do a rapid fire question session. So these are all questions that ideally you don't think very long about, and you just give kind of shorter answers to. One of the questions was,
It's
"What's the
perfect.
most?" Yeah.
That's perfect. I usually don't think, so it's right up my alley.
Okay, well, that's great because this is one of those things where I just want the first thing that pops into your head. But one of the questions for the rapid fire section is what's the most necessary character trait to be a client developer? But I feel like you kind of answered that with patience. Any other like character traits that you think is most necessary to be an Ethereum client developer?
I think some like patience, persistence, and something that I would like some developers to have more of is like good communication skills. I
Yeah.
think that is sometimes um, it, it's sometimes more important to to make people understand your idea than it is the idea itself. Yeah.
Okay, we got to go faster with these, okay? I'm going to start
Yes. Yes.
spitballing and sharing
Let's
them with
go.
you. Okay, rapid fire. What do you like most about Ethereum protocol development?
The people,
What do you dislike the most about Ethereum protocol development?
maybe also the people.
That's great.
No, it's I think the worst part is the calls. They're sometimes very exhausting.
Yeah. What do you wish somebody told you about jumping into the Ethereum ecosystem that you wish you knew before you got into it in 2017?
I think just get involved is like I I I try to get involved as early as possible, but I also needed like sometimes needed this push to just start doing something, and no one's there to stop you, and everyone is very helpful to explain to you why something might not work the way you think it. But yeah.
What's something that you know about the way Ethereum as a technology evolves and changes that you wish more people knew about?
Rapid
Just
fire questions.
first thing, quick, quick, quick.
Um, uh, what's something that I know that I would want more people to know? Um, we have, yeah, I think the important thing that I know that more people should know about is it's very important to, it's more important to keep Ethereum safe than to keep moving fast. And I, I see that sometimes, especially on the Twitter bubble, is like people are complaining about Ethereum moving very slow. But as I said, we are moving slow for a reason, because we want to make sure that everything is safe, everything is secure. And so far, we haven't had any like major incidents, disruptions of Ethereum. And I think that is a testament to how much time we spend to actually make sure that everything is working okay.
Yeah. What's an area of Ethereum protocol development that you wish that more people would start contributing to, or that you think is underserved, doesn't have enough
Yes.
eyes on?
Networking. And we started building out a dedicated networking team within the Ethereum Foundation. And they started doing a lot of really good work. But I think networking uh, is still underexplored. And also now we have some people within the foundation, but we don't have these networking expert within the community.
Yeah.
And I think if you are an expert in networking, then please get involved.
Yeah, that's good. Last rapid fire question. Marius, if you weren't working on Ethereum, is there an open source project that you would want to work on? If so, what is it?
Um, I want to work on software that has a benefit for people. I would probably work on maybe on the kernel, maybe on yeah, something like this, like infrastructure um, that benefits normal users. Well, normal users.
Well, wait, very briefly, can you just say one sentence, like what is the kernel?
I mean like the Linux kernel, like yeah, the piece of software that basically runs like all of the internet and half of the machines that we are working on.
That's interesting. The kernel is also the name for the working group in the Bitcoin core side to like
Oh, okay.
differentiate the core Bitcoin consensus software from the rest. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But anyways, Linux kernel, got it. Okay, well, thank you, Marius. Thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about how you got into Ethereum and your views on Ethereum protocol development.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me ramble about what I like.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Meet the Devs. I'm Christine D. Kim, the host of this series. Meet the Devs is a mini-series of the ACD Toolkit, which you can learn more about on my Substack, christinedkim.substack.com. All the information shared in today's episode and this series is strictly for informational purposes. Nothing communicated constitutes investment advice, an offer, recommendation, or solicitation to buy or sell any securities. The interview that you just heard was recorded on August the 11th, 2025. You can find out more information about Marius, the Geth team, the Ethereum Foundation in the show notes of today's episode. Special thanks to Shanae Kim for the illustrations in the series, and thank you all again for tuning in. I hope you'll be back to listen to another episode. I will be back with a new episode shortly. Talk to you guys then.